thank you so much for taking the time to hang with me on my channel a little bit. And I
Yeah.
did have some questions, of course. And there's actually a game I set up for you to play, a little trivia game later,
Oh
if you're up
dear.
for that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't study, did you?
No,
Oh boy.
absolutely not.
Okay. So anyway, those of you watching this, a lot of other interviews kind of talk about your kind of like your musical journey. I believe you kind of started in history and then you kind of took a little veer towards music, right? Or something like
Hmm.
that.
Yep.
So yeah, if you want to see those, check out those. I think Tank the Tech, you talked a lot about that. Elizabeth, I'm interested in the history stuff because I don't know if you noticed the name of my channel, History Buff. So
Mhm.
kind of have a
I did
vested
notice.
interest. So what was your concentration in history?
European history. I actually wanted to just like straight up focus on the Second World War and events leading up to and after that, but that's not something that you could major in back in the day. I don't know, maybe you can now. Lots of things have changed. But yeah, so I had to be a little bit more general. So I did European history. Um, and so I got to take all like the fun, cool courses that I wanted to, but I also had to take a bunch of other stuff that I didn't want to take.
Right, exactly.
Like,
Like a
but yeah, it was still a lot of fun.
So more like modern European history. Is that safe to say
Yeah.
if you wanted World War II?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I'm more medieval European, but and so a lot of people know a lot about World War II. I don't
Mhm.
at all. So like when I cover bands like Sabaton and stuff, World War II stuff, you're like, oh, Mr. History Buff, you should have known this. I'm like, no
No.
clue. So
There's
you'd be
so
the one.
much. I mean, how could you can't know everything about everything, right? So there's
Never.
just too much. It's too much. Yeah.
It's like being a doctor. You either know a lot about a little bit or a little bit about a lot, right?
Yeah.
No way to know everything.
No.
But yeah, and people just study World War II just for shits and grins, like a hobby.
Yeah. I know, like history books on the shelf kind of stuff and like in
Uh-huh.
your spare time or just, if you can't fall asleep at night.
Right, right. There's some cool movies too. Well, there's so many
Yes.
sources too. Like medieval, there's like
Yeah.
not much. So
No,
we knew
definitely not.
everything going on. Speaking of history, I see you've got the album cover behind your head there of what was that?
Explorers.
Yeah, Northwest Passage on that,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is the only video I officially like reacted to of yours because I've been a big fan and I hadn't seen that though, and that was super cool.
The yeah, no, it's definitely it was a good one. It was like a just a quick little EP put out right before Abyss came out because we had Northwest Passage as it was supposed to be the bonus track on Apex, but then we were like, no way, the song's too much fun to have it just be kind of like a hidden track. So we held on to it and then recorded Heartless World for the B-side and released it. And Dusty is the one that did the artwork and he did such a good job.
It's
We were
incredible.
like very the terror, that's what it was, the terror. And I was like, that's the vibe. I was like, let's do like a total terror vibe. And he just like got it bang on. So it was awesome.
That's beautiful. I mean, all the artwork is amazing for all your album covers. Is it the same person who did the other Apex
No, I
and
mean
Abyss?
um we have had a few actually. The first like I don't even remember 4 records or whatever, 3 or 4 records were somebody else. And then we got Ken Seraphin to do Apex and then Dusty to do Explorers. And then we wanted Ken to do Abyss as well, being that they were so kind of like one of the same story, but then he wasn't available. So then we kind of scrambled and we found Adam Burke and he had a similar style to Ken. So then he did Abyss and but I mean like we're usually very loyal when it comes to the people that we work with. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to find someone that we can kind of like stick with and that they could be our guy for a while,
Yeah.
because I just don't I mean I do love giving lots of artists the opportunity, but I also love having a unified brand and unified style when it comes to UTA. So hopefully, one of the guys that we worked with in the past will be willing to stick with us going forward. Maybe, who knows?
Right. Yeah, like all along I've always pictured the immortal that kind of looked like was a prisoner of the horn helmet. You ever heard of that story? Like
No.
Frank Fazetta with the, if you saw the picture, you'd recognize it. And then I
Probably,
started
yeah.
seeing like this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So there he is. I'm like, I didn't know that existed. This is my son's shirt, by the way. I stole it for the interview. I
Yeah,
got it for him for
right,
the
right.
concert. But I have another one coming. The one that's the North American first part tour, where it's
Okay,
got
yeah,
like the
yeah, yeah.
matriarch sitting there, and then she's got her henchmen
Yeah,
around
the
her and stuff.
conquest, the conquest shirt.
Conquest, yes.
Yes.
Man, okay. So I guess moving on to music. So I'm interested. You guys got so much talent in your band. So I'm kind of interested how the songwriting process looks. Is it safe to say you usually write most of the lyrics and all that?
Yes, yeah, I do all the lyrics. Yeah.
Cool.
But that's the last thing. That's the last thing that happens. That's well, with Apex and Abyss, what we did was I wrote the story out in like a track by track kind of overview. And I sent that to Andrew and Grant, and they would look at it and write the riffs based off of that. So Apex was Andrew and Grant, and Abyss was just Andrew writing riffs. So they'd bring stuff to me and they'd be like, hey, I was thinking about this for this song, or what does this riff sound like to you? Would this fit? And I'd be like, oh yeah, that's perfect for this, or oh no, that's not quite right, or you know what, I was thinking maybe we could do something like this, or we just kind of back and forth on it until we kind of had the foundation for every single song. And then we would work on it from there and go from there and kind of make sure that we put all the parts together. And then, we do like rhythm guitars and drums and vocal melodies at the very end once everything was in, because I like to take into account all of the instruments and what Scott's doing and everything as well. So then at the very end, once I've figured out all the melodies, that's when I put the lyrics in. And there were some parts that was a little bit more difficult than others, but knowing the story so well beforehand and having written everything with the kind of what's going on in the story in mind, keeping that in mind when writing the riffs and everything, it comes pretty naturally. So that was really just kind of like, yes, I finally get to tell the story, after everything else has been done. So, but Andrew and I worked really closely on Abyss together, just to make sure that everything fit and that everything flowed, and no song was written without thinking about the song that was going to come before and come after. So it was all just kind of a very cohesive process. And I really liked doing it that way. I liked kind of having all of the aspects of the music fused within, into one another. So we'll probably keep songwriting that way, I think, hopefully.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, every song does kind of paint the picture of what's happening. And I think it was so cool. So my kids, I have a 5 and a 6-year-old. We listen to your music like all the time. And like we were listening to I think it was Afterlife. And then that melody crept in from the very first track, Waking Dream, right? Is that the right?
Yeah.
And so my daughter started shouting like, oh my gosh, that's the first song. I'm like, yeah. So the way that it kind of came full circle was so neat. But the words flipped and everything, just really brilliant writing. Super cool.
Thanks. Yeah. We actually wrote Afterlife first. And then I said, okay, I'm going to come up with the chorus and then take the chorus and use it as that kind of intro. Because Waking Dream, I wouldn't really call it a song and like unto itself. It's more of just an intro. And so we just took that, changed the words, and then Andy wrote kind of the riffage to go underneath that melody to the whole build up and everything. And it was really funny because drums were actually the last thing to go into that one, wow. Which is really
Scott
definitely
he's a beast, and he just doesn't, like I was a drummer, right? And we're talking about Scott, so I don't want to even say I was a drummer because but like, I mean, he doesn't just like, I would, the guitarist would come up with a riff and then it's easy to throw a backing track behind that. But the way he writes, and I would say he writes, he doesn't just throw a drum fill or a drum riff. It's like the way he can present motion, and the way sometimes you guys are doing the same thing throughout a whole section of a song, but it sounds different because he's changed it up 4 times. He'll go halftime and then he'll do that. Just super brilliant writing from everybody.
Yeah. He's very, very talented. He does that like he totally does it all the time. It's really funny because Andrew will like write a riff and be like, I was thinking like this kind of beat, and Scott will be like, no.
No,
And it's just like, and he'll do something completely that you wouldn't think of. And sometimes Andrew will like put his foot down and be like, no, I wrote this to be four on the floor, like so, and Scott will be like, fine, and do whatever,
whatever.
do what it was
We'll
that he envisioned. Yeah, exactly. So, but no, a lot of the times he does very much try and think outside the box and not do what everyone would expect you to hear there.
Yeah.
And I think he kicks himself afterwards sometimes because he's like, why didn't I just do this or whatever? Like, because it gets difficult to play live or whatever, or you have to like really concentrate on that part or something like that. And he's just kind of like, you know what, I'm just writing the easy stuff from now on.
Yep.
So yeah.
Wow. And it took me a long time to realize that that's actually Andrew singing on help me out.
Carry the Flame.
Carry the Flame. Yeah. I thought she was like a guest singer. Sounds like Howard Jones.
Okay, yeah.
I thought you had a guest
very
singer
similar
in there.
tone.
Yeah.
Kind of
Why doesn't he do more cleans with you? Not that you need help, but
well, I just kind of like to use him sparingly as like other voices in the story, really is what it comes down to. So he was in Carry the Flame playing the part of the grandson as he was passing away, in the Immortal's arms. So I just wanted to have another voice in there to do that kind of back and forth thing. And the only time that you hear from the grandson is when the entire song is from his perspective. So it's kind of like, well, I don't want Andrew to sing that whole song. Right. So I was like, so I'll just sing that, and then Andrew can be his voice on this one track. And he's a guitar player. So I don't know if you notice this, but when you have guitar players that sing at the same time as playing, most of the time they're the rhythm player, because they've got to be able to do just the chords under it or whatever. Or you watch a band where the guitar player is the singer and it follows a very distinct pattern a lot of the times, where it's chords or simple, easy progressions, and then a little vocal break. And that's when the fun stuff happens. And then chords, easy progressions, vocal break when the fun stuff happens.
Right.
So
like
blues.
if
I put Andy on all the songs, and he can't do the shreddy stuff that he loves so much. So,
right. That always happens, not just during the solo, but throughout the whole song. It's
exactly. Yeah, no, he never stops. So it's very difficult to write melodies over when he's already got a super catchy melody in there. And it's like, really? Couldn't have made it easy for me, right? Like how about just some major chords? Like,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Gosh, I can't wait to see you guys live to just see how all that translates. My gosh. Okay. So, wait, I want to talk about Nick. Did you guys, so bassist in my bands, I've always had issue with keeping a bass player. Nick, did he find like a forever home? Is he with you guys now?
It's not like, it's difficult.
Okay.
It's difficult because yes. I mean, like, he is our guy. He will always be the first one we call when it comes time to tour. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking we'll probably just get him to record on the next record as well. Because he had only just done one tour with us before we recorded Abyss. And we were kind of like, is he our guy? Yeah, we think he's our guy. Like, okay. And then, but now we've spent a lot more time with him, and he's just super rad.
He looks like but the thing, fun.
He's absolutely fantastic human being, and he's just so like positive and kind, and it's really funny because we all have our isms and things like that, and me as I'm always constantly kind of having to be the one to do the hard stuff or whatever when we're on tour, and Scott's like the comedic relief, and Andy is like the party time, like just like it doesn't matter if it's noon, let's crack a beer. And Grant, like we all have our aspects of the band, and Nick just kind of slotted in there so perfectly as like the person that's always like, yep, let's do it, like just he's always keen, and so it just kind of fit perfectly with us. And so definitely our touring guy, and we'll see how it goes from there. But there's also like complicated stuff on the back end of things, because we're technically like incorporated with the four of us. So it's
I
like,
see.
how do you make him a member of the band? But technically he's actually an employee, so it's kind of like he's not an equal member, and then it's just all this kind of rigmarole going on in the background that is very difficult to explain. So I don't know.
Wow. It's funny you say that, because like when I did Northwest Passage, I made the comment that you guys seems like you're just up for anything. But they're just, a group of friends that just occasionally will just have a weird idea. I kind of call them shower ideas, right? Where you're just like, something comes to you and you're like, that's goofy as hell. Let's do it.
You son of a bitch. I'm in.
And they're that tight and that similar in their nerdiness to all be on board. Like somebody comes up with the idea like, hey, let's do a bunch of multiverses with an evil Brittney. And you're like, and then I even spliced in a little part from Rick and Morty. It's like, you son of a bitch, I'm in, and that just seems like your band. Like, hey, let's do it. Hey, we're running in goofy looking shorts for Faster Than Light. Let's do it,
Yeah. No, it's very important that you be ready at the drop of a hat to do anything in this band.
Seems like it.
Northwest Passage was Scott and I. We used to live in an apartment where we had a hot tub, and so we'd like, you had to book or whatever your time and stuff, and so we'd be in there at like midnight, the last time slot, and we'd just be like ruminating on music video ideas. And I have to say, Northwest Passage, we probably ruminated a little too long, because it just got so intense. And it was like, oh, we could do this and we could do this, and like, let's do this and blah, 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 blah. And then we have this director, Rod Scobie, who is the kind of guy that's just like, yeah, okay, let's do it. Or like, yeah, let's give it a try. Or like, well, I'll try and make it happen. Like he's not the kind of guy that says, we'll know that we can't do that. That's impossible or whatever. Or like, he just doesn't say no. He's just like, yeah, we'll try. And so he's always like going along with our crazy ideas. And then Fast and Light was actually his idea, because we were like, well, we want to be running, like we want to be racing each other. And he's like, okay. And we were like, that's it. That's all we got. And he's like, have you guys ever read the Long Walk? I think it was called. And it's like a Stephen King, like post-apocalyptic kind of, before Hunger Games was Hunger Games, there was the Long Walk, basically.
Like Squid Game. Have you seen that? That new?
Yeah. Yes, I've seen it. But Hunger Games, you pick people and they go and they compete for your country or whatever. Well, this was the same thing, but it was like 20 kids would have to run this crazy marathon. And if you stopped, you died. You got killed. So he's like, let's do that. We were like, yeah, obviously, just up for whatever. So, and it's really funny because like Napalm's actually almost to the point where they don't even ask for treatment anymore. They're just like, okay, so are we doing music video? We'll be like, yep, don't worry, we got it. And they're like, okay. And they just like, we'll just take whatever you hand us, basically. Unless we ask for a lot of money. And then in that case, they're like, well, why? So, but
yeah, I don't find it very realistic that Scott pulled a hammy in that video with what he does with his foot pedal all day long. Like, he's not pulling a hammy.
I know, right? It's really funny. And it is all day long. Literally, he'll just be sitting there at work, like doing his doubles on the floor. And I'll be like, stop. Go to the jam spot. Come on.
My beat lab.
Tappy on the floor all day long. It's pretty funny.
Gosh. So what was your inspiration for the Immortal story? You said it's been rolling in your head for a long time, right?
Yeah. So it was kind of when we finished Time Stands Still, we had just been signed to Napalm, and they were like, do you have a new record? And we were like, yeah, it's ready, and here it is, and here's all our music videos and stuff. And they're like, cool, we're gonna hold on to it for like 8 months, and it's not gonna come out until this time. And we were like, what? Oh man. So I started like writing the new record, basically, because we had been writing that album for a long time, and we went through like a huge lineup change in the middle of it, and I don't know. Basically, it's really funny. Like basically by the time Time Stand Still came out, we were kind of done with it. So we, well, of course we had to tour it on and all that stuff. So, but mentally I was definitely moved on to Apex, which I knew was going to be the next record. And I had all these grand ideas and I was like, let's do a 2-disc album and it's going to be a story on 2 different CDs. And it's going to be like the first half and the second half of the story. And the boys were like, yeah, sure. Whatever you want to do. Like, just yeah, let's go. Yeah. And so it started with, I knew I wanted to have a female antagonist. I was like, because women lusting after power is like the scariest thing on the planet. And I knew I wanted to have a male protagonist, but I wanted him to be kind of like a tragic hero, because if he's super all powerful and can just destroy everything in his path, what's to stop him from destroying the matriarch? Why does she have power over him? So I was kind of like battling with that a little bit. And then I came up with the whole curse thing. I was like, well, oh no, wait, he's like cursed to serve whoever employs him or whatever. And then I was like, okay, but he sleeps forever. And I was like, but where's he going to sleep? Where you can sleep for thousands of years and no one's going to discover you. And I was like, oh, inside of a mountain. Those things change by millimeters over centuries. So I was like, okay, so we got a guy and he sleeps in a mountain and he gets awakened by this evil mad woman who wants to use him to do what? And I was just like, I don't know. And just kind of like was piecing it together through like things that I've loved throughout my life, movies and video games and comic books and books and stuff like that, and just drawing pieces here and there. Like the matriarch was totally inspired by Bavmorda from Willow, and the Immortal was inspired by the character Wolf from East of West, the comic book series. And
so seriously, Bavmorda. So okay, yeah. Full disclosure here. One of the first videos I did, I've been doing this like 6 months now, was 3 things I love about Unleash the Archers. Right. So I went on this big tangent. Yeah, I know. About the story of the Immortal. And I kind of broke it down in a short little snippet and everything like that. And when I said, I kind of picture her looking like this, it was Bavmorda. She can shoot fire from her hands and she can control people's minds. I kind of picture her looking like this, like a picture of Bavmorda.
Nice.
I'm super stoked you said that. Okay. Anyways, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I actually have, this way. Someone drew me a photo of Bavmorda drinking blood from skull.
Their skulls. Nice.
Yeah, in matriarch style.
Don't forget Mother's Day, right?
On last tour. Yeah, it was awesome. I was just like, this is the greatest thing I've ever had. Like
Willow was a great movie.
Oh man, and it stands the test of time, and it's still amazing, and it's entertaining, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then when I learned that Bavmorda's daughter was Daredevil's mother, have you watched the show Daredevil?
No.
She's like this old nun, and I'm like, where have I seen her before? I'm like, oh my gosh, she's a kid. I used to have a crush on her. She's
Sorsha.
Sorsha, that's her name. Yes.
No way. Really? She's in Daredevil?
Mm-hmm.
Oh dang. That's awesome.
The TV show. Yeah, not the Ben Affleck garbage.
No. The series on Netflix or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Wow. I'll have to rewatch that. That's awesome.
Cool. So so he's in a mountain and awesome. And then he wakes up in space. So like what? There's like a couple thousand years there. No,
actually. I wanted it to be, I knew I wanted the first part to be very fantasy-esque, and I wanted the second part to be very sci-fi-esque, because I'm a fan of both equally. I love fantasy, I love science fiction. So I was like, okay, so record 1's going to be fantasy and record 2 is going to be science fiction. So I don't really talk about the science fiction elements of this world in the first record at all. It's mostly just the matriarch saying like, come here, go find my sons and bring them back so I can, do this ritual. And then the Immortal goes and finds them and brings them back and is betrayed. And then in the second one, he escapes off into space. But the thing is that it existed in the first one as well. It was never this archaic civilization that didn't have any of this stuff. Okay. Yeah, it was kind of always like that. I am working on comics. I've got like all these ideas in my head. It's just a matter of time to get them out. I've been trying to write like the scripts in a very detailed way so that my vision could come across easily for an artist. But I think I can't do that. I just don't have the time. So I'm literally just going to write out like everything, all the scenes and everything as quickly as I can, just to get it out and get it into my artist's hands so that he can get working on something. And then we'll just go from there, because like trying to explain like wide angle, close up, whatever, blah, blah, blah. This is what's happening. It's just like taking me so long to add all these details. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of like, second tour is done in December, I'm going to absolutely dive headfirst into the comic books so that I can fill all these gaps for everybody. But yeah, so basically it was kind of always this, you know, more technological civilization, but what they didn't have was space travel. So 50 years pass and the matriarch is now immortal, and so she doesn't really worry about anything else except, of course, first world domination and then universal domination. So she's like, okay, well, now the planet's mine, you know, what's next? So she builds this whole armada that so that she can kind of send her legions out into space to take over the next galaxy, whatever, all that sort of stuff. So in the second book, the grandson steals the immortal, steals one of those ships and pieces out, because he knows that without the immortal, the matriarch is incredibly vulnerable, because he's really the only one that can stop her or stand up to her. So he's like, aha, I'm going to take away your secret weapon and destroy you and not let you take over the universe. And that's really kind of what the whole second album is
Yeah,
about.
and I've always wondered, okay, how is the grandson still alive? I just, for whatever reason, thought it was in the future. But there you go.
Right. No, everyone did.
There's
It was
always
really funny
spaceships,
because
kind of.
I know everyone was like, until I wrote the yearbook, which was just like this limited edition thing that we released for the Abyss album release, and that told a little bit of the story in more detail. Still had to do it quickly because due to the budget, we could only print so many pages. And so I literally had to put so much into one page, like each chapter got one page. So I was like, how do I write this in such a way that I still can get my point across and there can be a little bit more info and some more, you know, juicy details for everybody, but still fit. So that was a challenge.
That's cool. I think those comic books are really gonna take off. You know what I kind of pictured?
Yeah.
So have you ever, you're probably not a fan, Fallout Boy?
I mean,
probably not.
Used to listen to them back in the day a little
So
bit.
they had an album called we went through a phase, my family and I, where we were listening to them, and they had an album called Save Rock and Roll, and they basically had a movie, like a full-length movie that happened right over that album. You know what I mean? And and I think something like that mixed with, like, have you seen Heavy Metal, the show, the movie?
Yep. Oh,
yeah. So like I picture like some kind of really cool you know, like where just the music plays for the two albums and you got this badass like anime on top of it. That would be so cool. I mean, the comic books are cool also, but you like,
yeah. I mean, we inquired with an animation studio in Vancouver about doing one of our songs, and the budget was it was like $100 a second of film.
oh my God.
Of
Okay.
animation.
Never mind.
So I was like, okay, so this is a 7-minute song, and I was like, never mind.
Yeah. Hour
so
and a half, probably
really,
with two albums, right? Yeah.
I think it was even something more intense than that. It was super crazy. It's like $1,000 a second or something stupid. Regardless, it was way too expensive, and so I asked a couple other ones, and they just didn't even get back to us. So I was kind of like, well, I guess no one. You know, you gotta know somebody or something, I guess, in the industry in order to get an animated video, or you gotta be Iron Maiden, or
Right.
you know what I mean, or Ozzy Osbourne or something, because they both have released animated videos in the last few months. But yeah, that'd be rad. But it's just like we can't
The
afford
resources.
it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And Fallout Boy has been getting factor grants for years, so you know, they get like $100,000 from the government for every album. So
Really?
It's not the label and it's not them doing it. It's like grants and stuff like that. So
Gotcha.
and
Well,
in
yeah,
order
theirs
to get
wasn't.
those, you gotta have radio play and sales like they do and stuff like that. So
Gotcha.
it's money. It's always about money at the end of the day. You know
Absolutely.
how it is.
And everything's a gamble too. You put so much into it, and you hope. But it's really cool. I was really thinking about it too, because I've read so many fantasy novels and things like that. But you notice how the trope is always like the protagonist starts out as like a nobody, right? And then somebody like powerful comes along, takes them on a journey, right? Whether it's Hobbit or whatever. But yours is flipped. Your protagonist is already like super all powerful, and he's trying to become a nobody. So that came to me like 2 days ago. I was like, that is just neat, because it's hard to get away from those tropes because they're so common,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, that's why I was like, because I wanted him to be, that's, the whole tragic hero thing, because he's like so much power, but he's so crippled by his past and by the fact that he's just been a tool for all these empires over the years.
He's been a tool.
And he's the one that has built them. He's the one that has made them what they are, or what they were before they, put him back to sleep and crumbled away. But and yet he still doesn't realize that he's the key factor in all these things, that he's the one with the power. And it finally takes him being awakened by the grandson, who is kind and benevolent and cares about him. And, for him to be like, wait a minute, like, oh yeah, I'm fucking rock. Like,
right.
I need to just break free from this and be, I want to be the good guy. I'm going to be the good guy. I'm going to make that choice. And so, man, I have so many ideas for the comic books. You guys have no idea,
great.
but
just need time, right?
It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
You're busy.
Oh,
so
if I could stop time, I would.
Speaking of that, okay. I don't know if this is top secret or whatever. So like albums in the future, right? Are you going to kind of keep on the Immortal story, like maybe origin stories, prequels, stuff like that, or?
I mean, I left it open for those opportunities, but right now I'm a little done with that musically. I mean, I'm going to continue working on it, obviously, for the comic books and everything, but musically, I really want to do something else. I want to try something else. And so I have a few ideas. And I've just been kind of like running them by the band and everything, and being like, what if we did this? Or what if we did that? Or things, just kind of options. But I really like that whole writing style of having something behind the music before we start writing the music. So Andrew was kind of like, whenever you're ready, like, just send it over. And I'm like, okay, just give me a little bit longer, like 5 more minutes. And so we haven't quite gotten started on it yet, but that's what 2022 is supposed to be, focus on that. And it's really funny because records right now are so far behind when it comes to printing, like actual like physical vinyl records, that basically you have to have it in the printing press's hands like a year before you want the actual record.
Oh my gosh.
So I know. So it's going to be, I don't know, record at the end of the year and release it at the end of 2023 kind of a thing, probably. Just because of the way that the industry has been so messed up by COVID and shipping delays and manufacturing delays and all that kind of thing. Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. But
cool that
I'll try and get on it.
You better not.
Yeah.
But like, it's cool that vinyl is really kind of coming back, I don't know if you see, I got Brothers of Metal. They're 2 up here. Between you guys and them, it's like
but they're like, what, the whole thing is the artwork?
They're pictures, yeah.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah, and the other side is like the band, kind of like.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, those were limited. I think they only made 1,000 of those. That's why I kind of jumped on them. But
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, you familiar with Brothers of Metal? Viking metal?
I only really listen to them on Twitch because they get played so much by all the Rocksmith players. Gotcha. So I'm always like, yeah, I know this song. But I haven't really listened to them in my own time. I'm That's a little bit heavier fan these days. I mean, I go through phases. Sometimes I'm like, yes, give me the cheesy power metal. But then sometimes I'm like, no, just give me the really dark, heavy technical death metal today, and I've kind of been on that kick for a while.
Yeah, I'm a kid of the 80s. So like power metal just, I don't know, it speaks to me.
Yeah.
That's like how the commercials were like all badass, like gonna
Yeah.
go get some Charmin. I don't know. It was just
Oh
always everything
man.
was, yeah.
I just saw a commercial for the new Call of Duty, and I don't know what song that was that they had on there, but it was horrible. And it was someone trying to play what they think is heavy metal. But it was really just like I don't even know. I can't even explain it. It's so bad. It's so bad. I was just like, hello, if you want a heavy metal song, go hire a heavy metal band. They'd be happy, but they'd love to write the Call of Duty theme song,
Right.
Like, God, go like, or even like Trivium or something, it's like somebody, somebody that
Somebody
knows what they're doing.
sitting
It
in their
was
basement
so
with a
funny.
guitar and an amp and a synth, probably,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, it's like when the Aquaman's movie came out, and it should have been heavy metal the whole time. It absolutely should have, just with the Jason Momoa kind of vibe that he gives off, and that whole badass like bad boy kind of thing that they were trying to do with that movie. And this music was not good enough. It was just not. That was the only thing that I didn't really enjoy about it. It took me out of it every time because it was someone that thought they were writing heavy music, just writing the most boring rock and roll riffs I'd ever heard in my whole life. I was so disappointed by the soundtrack from that film because, like, come on, people, heavy metal is not going to get your movie kicked out of the box office. Put it in there. Real
Right.
heavy metal. I want to hear it.
Yep.
It needs to happen. One day someone's going to get it. But until then, yeah, I mean, just all this fake stuff. It's so funny. It's so bad.
That's funny because that's stuff I probably would notice. But like I've been a paramedic. I've been a paramedic, so like I'll notice when there's medical stuff. So it's probably the same mindset. You're like,
Right.
just ask
Exactly.
me. I'll
Totally.
tell you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how to put an IV
Dude.
in the right way. This
Yeah.
movie's
Like,
millions of dollars. I'll do it for free.
don't shove that pen in that person's throat. That's not how it works.
Right. The EpiPen's backwards. He got a needle through his thumb. Or
Yeah. Oh no.
I just realized I'm gonna have to fix the coloring on this thing. My face is purple from the whiskey. Anyway,
Is it the
terrible color.
coloring? Or is it, you're like,
I'm gonna blame it on
you
that.
got the boozy
Sure.
red cheeks that happen when you get all like flushed.
I do. Yeah. Jeez. So touring. Let's talk about touring. So how's that been? Like a whole new experience this time around with, I mean,
Yes.
the big C word.
Yeah. Big
Been
time. Hey.
tricky.
Yeah. It was really tricky. We love our fans. We like getting to hang out with them. We like getting to spend time with them and talk to them and chill out and party. And we just couldn't do any of that. And it really sucked. And we were doing VIP meet and greets before every show. But we like couldn't take our masks off. And normally when we take the photos, we're like, put our arms around them and they're just like one of the crew, and we like had to keep them at arm's length and stuff. And it just really sucked. And we couldn't hang out after the show. Like usually what we do is, we'd pack up and we do all our stuff or whatever. But if anyone was hanging around at the bar after, like sometimes not so much anymore because we've started playing more venues than we have bars. But we used to love that if the bar would stay open after the show and we just hang out at the bar with whoever the night owls were or whatever and talk and chill out and just have a few beers and kind of decompress after the show. And we couldn't do that at all. It was like back to the bus, don't talk to anyone, put your mask on if you're leaving the bus, and don't shake people's hands, and don't take things, don't share drinks, don't do, and none of that stuff. I mean, not that we're usually like just taking people's beers and taking a swig or anything like that, but like don't take beers that are being bought for you, that kind of stuff.
Right. I mean, things you take for granted before, right? I mean,
yes. Yeah.
Shaking hands.
So,
I mean, a little part of me dies inside every time I see like a C2E2 picture of a celebrity and they've got the plexiglass between them and the other people. And
yeah, it's so sad, but it's like, it's necessary because that person has to continue to do this thing all over the country, all over the world, wherever.
Right. Yeah.
And they can't get sick from some random that just doesn't realize they have it or whatever, and then become a super spreader all over the place. So it just really sucked. And most people were totally cool with it, and they were just like, yeah, I get it. And then some people were kind of like, oh, I don't have COVID. And it's like, yeah, but you might, you don't know that. There's the whole asymptomatic side of things. So I'm so sorry, but I can't like converse with you right now unless you put a mask on and stuff like that. And so that really sucked. And then, but the shows were amazing. Like, it was so much fun, and so many people came out, and we were so just like honored by that, honestly, because it's a scary time still. And a lot of people were worried for themselves that they would catch something by going to a venue packed full of people. So, and that's totally understandable, but people still, they came out and they braved the storm for us. And that meant so much to us. And it was really great. Like, it was just like this crazy kind of pros and cons side to things. It was so great to get back on the road, but having to be so careful and so diligent was really tiring. And but it was just so great to see everybody and to get to play these songs live finally, and to hear everyone singing along to them, and just to get to like have fun with everybody, and talk in between the songs, and kind of, it was like what it's all about. It's why we do this. So not being able to do it for the last 18 months or whatever it was really sucked, and it really took it out of us. And a lot of bands didn't make it through this. Like, this, everyone's well aware of all the bands that called it quits. And and or some that may have called it quits and they just haven't even said anything, and we're just never gonna get a new album from them again, kind of a thing. Who knows? So it wasn't easy, that's for sure. So we're really glad to be back out there doing it. But we just got to make sure that we do it right, and that we're safe about it, and that we don't put anyone at risk in order to do what we love. So
well, in Joliet, if you look up and off to the right a tiny bit, my son and I will be right there. So
awesome.
We'll be like, I think the way they have it set up is there's tables, I think, instead of it being like general people standing, there's tables. So so okay, social media, right? And tagging out kind of what you just said about meeting your fans. I noticed you're on Twitch a lot, right? So do you ever get to the point, I'm noticing this too, right? I'm not saying that, but like, I've got a lot of people, I only know them based on like their tag name and their profile picture. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like for me, my fans, you have a lot more fans than I do, but my fans are like Pumpkin Masher, and it's a picture of a pumpkin, and that's all I know them by. Yep. So is that do you have that same experience? And then when you finally meet them, it's probably like mind blowing, right?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. We met a lot of our Twitch fans and friends and family on this last tour, and it was awesome. And a lot of them came in and they did the VIP. So we actually got to like talk to them and hang out a little bit. And so they'd be like, "Oh, I'm whatever music maker or Hazelnuts." And we'd be like, "Yes, oh my God, yay, hi, like so awesome to meet you," and put a face to the name. And like, I've always been really communicative with people over the years on like whatever platform was cool at the time. Like, so Facebook,
more so than a lot
Instagram.
of people. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really important to me that that we keep in contact with you guys, because that's you're the only reason why we're here. We wouldn't exist without our fans. Like no artist would exist without their fans. So it's really important to us that that we give you guys the time of day. So I would have people come up to me at shows back in the day and be like, "Oh, I'm blah 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 from Facebook." But the thing is that there's like so many of them that I'd be like, "Oh, cool. Hey, yeah." And like a lot of times
that one guy who was talking about avocados, you remember me?
Yeah.
Right.
And like a lot of times it would just be like, it would be so hard because first of all, I don't look at profile photos. There's just too many messages. So I don't look at the photo. So when they come up to me and they're like, "Hey, it's me, John." And I'm like I got 50 messages from Johns over the last like 3 months. Which John? And So I mean, it's really hard sometimes to keep track, but we definitely do our best. Absolutely.
Yeah.
To
I mean,
get to know each and every one of you guys and to, give you our time. Yeah.
and speaking of that, you were like one of the first person I ever saw. I can't talk anymore. First people that I've ever seen who like actually reacted to reactions. Like I remember Mr. Rock and Roll. So you created a vortex, right? You reacted to his reaction, and he reacted to your reaction of his reaction. And then it just, I thought that was so cool. And then other artists have done that kind of since then, but you were one of the first.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, so that was cool. I mean, do you definitely feel that like social media and all that, is that a good time to be in a band, or would it be better back in the 80s where that stuff didn't exist and you had, I mean,
it's a little bit of both. It's hard work keeping up with everything, and I'm not good at it. Like I'm really not. I don't post nearly as much as I should. And whenever like our agent or whatever is like, okay, we've got an announcement at 9 a.m. I'm like, yep, cool. And then I like wake up at 9:30. I'm like, oh shit, like I'm late all the time.
You have to do the announcement. Okay.
Yeah.
You got people for that.
Nope, not yet. Maybe one day. But yeah, no, I run all of our social media. So I'm just not very good at it, but it is super important. And I think it's important that you try and be on every platform you can. But like back in the day in the 80s, I can only imagine like how out of touch they are now with the way that things are, because yeah, you were kind of an enigma. People didn't know you. They didn't know you. Mm-hmm. So you didn't have to really worry about being somebody to these people or owing them your time or like your attention, because
it was just the music probably. Now
yeah, you were like a voice on the radio and you were a face in a magazine. So but that's also kind of like, I don't know. It's like, if this is the right word, but it's kind of sad. I love knowing who my fans are and knowing who I'm writing for when I'm writing, and hearing their reviews and remarks and comments or whatever. And whenever something shitty happens on the internet, the millions of trolls that are out there, our fans are there defending us. And I'm kind of like, oh, well, fuck, of course. Yeah, blah. This person, I know them. They're awesome. And I was talking to them about this very thing the other day. And so they jump in there and they save you, and you don't have to, be the one to do that. So it's kind of like, sure, it would have been cool to have been like this, like whatever, up on a pedestal, but it probably got really lonely, not, having any, not being in touch with the real world at all whatsoever. Yeah. So I don't know, pros and cons for both, I suppose.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So we got about 10 minutes. Do you want to play that game that I have?
Sure. Oh no.
I know, right? You're like, what are you talking about?
Yes, I can see a picture. Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So the game is name that map. Because you're a fantasy novel person and a historian. So I got some maps here, and see if you could figure out what they're from. I got 8 of them. Okay. So this is some of them are fantasy. Actually, they're all fantasy. I plan on throwing a few like the Northwest Passage, but I couldn't find a good one. So
Sea of Torments versus
Old Forest, the Empire, Karsus.
Timbre. I recognize Timbre, but I don't know Timbre and Tally. The Windy Country. Oh. Forsberg.
So I'll give you a hint. Glenn Cook.
Oh, Glenn Cook. Oh, really? Is this the Black Company?
Yeah, Black Company.
Oh, nice. I was like, Sea of Torments. Why do I know that?
Well, it's tricky because some of them were actually in the books, like the real map from the book. But then there's fan. This is probably a fan made one, so it probably doesn't look too much like.
I hate that when they don't have a map. I cannot stand that. I'm always like, I went to the point of drawing my own one time. I think it was for Black Company actually, where I was
Really?
like, yeah, I was just like, I don't know where we are. Like, what
I
is
had my
happening?
favorite copy of Lord of the Rings. It had the most beautiful maps in it. And ever since then,
Oh
I
yes.
can't find that
But they
book.
always did. They always have good maps in the Lord of the Rings books. I think Tolkien was like, it's a very imperative that people know where we are.
Yeah, he took a lot of notes. What about this one?
Hmm. Shu
You may
Han.
not have read all these. This is actually a show right now on, I think on
The
Netflix.
Bone Road. Oh, Bone.
The biggest one is you see that big black scar, the unsee. That's kind of like the
Mm.
biggest.
Well, I mean, I know there's that show Shadow and Bone, but I've never read the books.
Ooh, you got it. That's it.
But I've never, yeah, I don't know this at all. Yeah.
Wow, that was a good guess though.
The Wandering Isle. Does it
Uh-huh.
actually move around?
Right? I don't know. Okay, you should get this one.
Oh, I can't. It's very small. Can
Oh,
we
is it
zoom in?
small? Oh no.
I can't read any of the words.
Oh no. Okay, here, let me.
Oh, Dorne. Oh, of course. Game of Thrones.
There you go. Westeros, right? I had to blacken out that part there because it actually said Westeros. I'm like, yeah, that's
Oh,
not.
okay.
Okay,
That would have given it
you
away
better get this one.
just a little bit. Oh, what? Mordor. Oh, Lord of the Rings.
Nice.
Nice.
All right. This was okay. I forgot there was even a map to this. Let's see if we can figure
Midworld?
this one out. Yeah.
Gilead. The doors. Midworld. The Dark Tower?
Yes.
Well, it says it right there on the map.
Well, shit. I should have. Well, it's part of the map, the Dark Towers. So what did you okay?
It is on the map.
Full disclosure, what did you think about the books?
I haven't read
Did you
them
read them?
yet. I
Oh, you
have
read them?
Gunslinger on my to be read
Well,
shelf right
shit.
now. Literally right here. It's right behind me. You can't see it. It's too low on the shelf, but it's Scott read the Gunslinger books, the
Okay.
Dark Tower books.
Yeah,
So
they're really
they're on our
good.
shelf because of Scott. Yeah.
They're really good up and through like the first 3 books or so. Then he gets in a car
Mhm.
accident, and then after that, they're just, I don't know, something happened. He's just not
Something
the
weird.
same. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
You know
too
what's
bad.
funny? You mentioned this earlier about Tolkien writing his maps. I think when Stephen King writes, so like you got Tolkien and like Jordan, who their books are built on like massive amounts of notes. And like Stephen King is like, let me just spark up a blunt and see where this takes me,
Yeah, totally.
And that's
And
how
then
he
he just
writes,
ends up writing the same story over and over again.
right? And then he gets to the end and
Powerful.
he's like,
Yeah.
fuck it. Let's not worry about
Yeah.
the end because his endings always suck. But
No, it's true.
that's why I'm
It's
asking
really
you
funny.
because their last couple
He's
books
definitely
are
got a.
not very good.
I did enjoy The Stand. I enjoyed The Stand a lot. Also, what was the other one that I really liked from him?
But even The Stand kind of had a fuck it ending to it.
Yeah.
He like built up this
Yeah.
huge story, and at the end, it's just like, yeah.
Yep. That's the truth.
You know how it goes. All right, what about this one?
What is this?
What is
the
this?
Immortal,
I
the
don't
Immortal
know.
Saga? This is like a UTA map. Mount Apex, the Field of Flowers, Nick's Ranch, Matriarch's Castle. That's awesome.
Do you see the Northwest Passage up there?
That's awesome. I love that. That is the Northwest Passage. Kingsley Stronghold. That's awesome. I love that.
So I made this. I actually found a it's called, I can't remember what the name of the program is, but I made this last night. I was just messing around. And
Nice.
so all of the numbers correspond to a track on Apex.
For like D&D.
Yeah, why not?
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's awesome.
And then even
Oh,
did you notice
I get it.
USA down here? So it's like Canada, but not really.
Yeah. You got the mountain on the wrong side of the country, though, if that's
probably.
Canada.
But you got it right. Good job.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, what about this one?
Ebbing, Sintra. Oh, Witcher.
Nice.
Yeah, so good.
Did you read those
I'm
books?
Yeah. Half, I'm like, I think I've got one more book to go in the original trilogy. And then I read the 2 short story.
He's such a good writer, though.
Oh yeah,
So
no, it's
incredible.
great. It's really good. And it's
Yeah.
really fun because I started reading them because of the show, because that's what I do. Whenever a fantasy or science fiction something becomes a show, I have to read it first, because I'm like, I'm not watching this show without knowing the source material, right? And sometimes it bites me in the butt, because then I'm like, this isn't as good. I refuse to continue watching.
I know,
And
right? This is
and then
terrible. Yeah.
sometimes, yeah, sometimes I have the opposite. Actually, only one time have I ever had the opposite, which is where I read the first Harry Potter and then I saw the movie and I was like, oh man, the movie is so much better. It was just like, because I was probably, I guess, too old for the Harry Potter books when I started watching and reading them. So it was kind of like, oh, I'll just watch the movies. But yeah, so I started reading Witcher before the show, and I love how they are weaving the original trilogy in with the short stories. So it's like kind of like this whole series timeline interspersed with these kind of monster of the week adventures with Geralt. They've done a really great job, personally, in my opinion, I think, of making the books into a show worth watching, because there's just, how sometimes just things can go so wrong when it comes to turning books into movies or TV shows. So they're doing well so far, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Lord of the Rings was really good. Peter Jackson, I think, did a really fine job with that, which is a huge undertaking.
Totally. Oh yeah, man. And like all the stuff that they had to skip, but they still did a good job.
I think this is the last one. I don't know if you know this one.
The Blight. I recognize it. Sea of Storms. The Spine of the World. What is this? Shoot.
I'll give you a hint. You talked about it becoming a TV show or a movie. It's coming out in a few weeks. New TV show.
Oh, Wheel of Time?
Yep. Yeah, this is the Wheel of Time.
Okay.
Yeah, I made it through about 4 books so far.
I've never read the Wheel of Time. I had Scott, because he was doing it on audiobook. And so I would have Scott just turn the audiobook on so I could hear it. Yep. And so I was kind of like in and out of the story the whole time. So that I like recognize all these things, but I never fully read it. I don't know. I'm really torn on this one, because so many people say how amazing Wheel of Time is, but
it's huge.
Yes. And it's very much, old school high fantasy. And I really like kind of newer authors, Glenn Cook, Joe Abercrombie, kind of that more modern fantasy. I just can't handle like the trope of the young kid that doesn't think he's special. Turns out he's a prince with magical powers kind of stuff. And I've been told that that's exactly what Wheel of Time is.
Pretty much. It's that trope for sure.
I'm struggling with it a little bit. Like, I'm like, I should read this. I am a total lover of fantasy and absolute, I'll dive headfirst into anything nerd culture. But I also kind of think I might just watch the show. I don't know.
It's definitely Tolkien like 2.0 for sure. It's the same damn story. And a lot of people are thinking that maybe the Dragon Reborn might be one of the females. So of course people are freaking out like, oh my God, you can't do that, but the cool thing about the Wheel of Time, I don't know if you know the premise, but it's like the fact that it's gone around many, many, many times. So like each turning of the wheel, the same things happen. So they're just the people who wrote the story are kind of like, well, it's just another turning of the wheel, so it's different. So they have a kind of a way of, a little bit of artistic leeway, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Many artistic leeways.
Right. So, all right. I think that's it.
Cool.
Hey, you got an A-, I guess. I don't know how that works.
10 out of 10. Not really.
Yeah. You got an F+.
F+.
How does this work
got
now?
An F's before in my life.
There we go. Okay, cool. All right. Well, we're like 5 minutes over. So, I mean, hey, thank you so much for giving me some time. So full disclosure, this has like been goal of mine. Like I said, I started listen to me, my channel like 6 months ago. And I had just kind of like discovered Nightwish, and I had a niece of mine who lives kind of across the country. And, I said, hey, have you ever heard of Nightwish before? Because I was starting to really get into them. And they're like, yeah, they're pretty good. But have you ever heard of Unleash the Archers? And I'm like,
Oh,
okay.
nice.
So I checked you guys out. And then I really started getting involved in like reaction videos for whatever reason. There's something kind of like almost addicting about them. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
And watching like Chase and Tank the Tech do what they do, I really jumped in with them and got involved with their Discord and all kinds of stuff. And then when I saw like Chase Carnson interview you, I'm like, oh my gosh, like between the worthless history degree that you can't do anything with, and a few of the other things, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to interview Brittney Slays. So like I started on my channel to do some like reactions. So this is like really a kind of like a what's that called? A basket? No. What's that called? A wish basket? No.
Oh,
see, I can't think either.
No. It's
Come on.
Bucket list.
Bucket. It's not a basket, it's a bucket. So a bucket list moment. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So anyways, this means a lot to me. It really does.
No worries, man. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. That's rad. Well, when Natalie was like, the history buff wants to interview, I was like, yes. I'm like, sure. I love history. Like, absolutely. Yeah, let's do it. Oh, that's awesome.
Cool. Well, you have a fabulous night, and thanks for stopping by, and hope you have a good, is it weekend yet? Oh, it's Thursday.
Nope.
Okay.
Thursday.
Have a good weekend, and I'll see you in December.
Sounds good. I'll see you then.
All right. Bye.